All right, good morning, guys. I'm hoping that Wednesday finds you well. Um, it's rained all day here today, or last night, and rained last night, and it rained this morning, and it's still raining, so that's awesome. But nonetheless, I hope your Wednesday is doing good. Today, we're going to talk about the Mexican-American War and some historical settlements. Okay, so we've talked about how Texas became an independent state. We talked about how Florida is under Spanish and Mexican rule, and things like that. So now we're going to talk about how the United States started to show its force a little bit in getting some of the territory that we currently own today. So the words that we're going to learn are treaty, which is just a formal agreement between countries. That means like, okay, I'm not going to fight you. Okay, I won't fight you. We agree on it. We handshake and we sign something. Okay, so that's what that means. That means the war is over. Nobody's fighting anymore, and nobody's going to fight ever again. Or you'll break the treaty. So that's what that means. The next thing is annexation, which is adding or incorporating a territory, meaning basically like whenever the United States took over Oregon, they also got the territory of Hawaii. So it wasn't until 1950 that Hawaii became a state. So it just means you're adding a piece of land is all annexation means. It means you're just adding a piece of land. So you want to remember A and A. That's how you can remember that, A and A. Secession is giving the rights or the property of a territory by state. So as we'll talk about Florida, Spain succeeded the rights to the Florida to the United States. What that means is we give up something, like you give something up. That's what that means. So if you remember C and then think of cut, because you're cutting it away, you're cutting that piece of land away from you. That's how you might be able to remember that. All right, maritime trade by sea and other waterways. All right, so maritime is an old word that is used it's still used today for any type of trade by sea or waterways. So whenever this is the only way that they were able to trade back in the 17 and 1800s was by sea and other waterways if they wanted to take them on for far journeys, especially to other countries. Like if they wanted to cross the ocean or they wanted to do something like that, that's the only way they would be able to do it. So maritime trade is a trade by sea and other waterways. Agricultural, I think you guys should know this. This isn't the first time we've seen this word. This is just related to farms. The agricultural industry here in Ohio, that's just farming, that's crops, that's corn, that's all that stuff. So I know you guys have seen this word before, so I don't think you're going to struggle with this one at all. Capital, I think you guys should know what a capital means. It's a city or town that is the seat of the government. Columbus is the capital of Ohio. Washington, D.C. is the capital of the United States. Charleston, West Virginia is the capital of West Virginia. Here in my little county, Stephenville is the capital of Jefferson County per se. So capital is just a city or a town that is the seat of the government. It's just whatever the capital is of that state or town or whatever. I think you guys should know. I think you guys should not struggle with that one either. All right. So now let's talk about the Mexican-American War, which happened in 1848. All right. So the Mexican-American War. So learning the 5 W's of the war. So the what is obviously a war between U.S. and Mexico. It started when American troops and the Mexican troops fought over the Texas border. So basically what happened was whenever Texas seceded from Mexico, meaning the Texas gained their independence and then they joined the United States, there was a border. So Mexico thought it was one river. The United States thought it was the El Paso or the Rio Grande River. And they fought over it. So Mexico thought they had land up to a certain point, and the United States was like, no, you got to back up a little bit and go back past the Rio Grande River. So what ended up happening was the United States sent troops down to guard that border. Mexico said, "You're in our land." The United States said, "No, we weren't." And then before you know it, shots were being fired, and that's how the war started. When did this occur? It occurred between 1846 and 1848. Why? We're going to dig a little bit deeper to answer that question. I kind of talked about it just a few seconds ago, but let's dig a little bit deeper to answer that question. So, as you can see, in 1821, the land in gray here was all of Mexico. Okay. The land in darker gray here were the states of the United States. Okay, so this is Florida, still Spain. These are not states yet. So this is the United States of America in 1821. So let's see what happens as we move forward in time. Texas is still part of Mexico. Remember, that's what I just said. So Texas right here is still part of Mexico. So then the Texas Revolution happens in 1836, right? All of a sudden, Texas becomes its own country. There's the country of Texas, right? We still got the United States over here, still, gray, dark gray here. So the United States didn't change. Mexico lost this big chunk of land, which was Texas, right? Mexico lost this big chunk of land. So now we got the country of Texas in 1836. Well, then 10 years later, what ends up happening? Texas joins the United States. So now the United States not only includes the gray states that we had here before, it now includes the big chunk of land of Texas. So now this is now part of the United States, and Mexico still owns this, but they've lost Texas. So Mexico was upset about Texas joining the United States. We talked about this a few weeks ago. Mexico was not happy. They tried to take back Texas during the revolution. Their president came up and he got captured and whatever. We learned all about this last week. So Mexico did not agree with the Texas border, like I said. So the U.S. said the border of Texas was the Rio Grande River, which was this right here, this one. So the United States believed it was this river. Mexico believed it was this border. And you may not think that's a lot, and it probably isn't. It might be like 15, 20 miles, maybe. It might be more than that. I really don't know how much distance between the Rio Grande River and the Nueces River is. But that's where Mexico thought Texas ended, and the United States said Texas ended here. So that was a fight. So the United States brought down troops, and they put troops all along the Rio Grande River. And they wouldn't let Mexico in here. And Mexico was like, wait a minute, you got to back up to here. And the United States said, no, we're not moving. Kind of like whenever you fight with your brother and sister, or your two brothers, or a cousin, or whoever you might fight with, where it's like, I know I'm right. I'm not backing down. That's kind of what the United States did. And Mexico was like, I'm right. I'm not breaking down. I'm not backing down. And then they ended up fighting. So where was it fought? You can see that there was a lot of fighting everywhere. As you can tell, a lot of the fighting happened in Mexico. All right. So there's a lot of arrows on this. But everything in blue is where the United States forces went. Everything in pink is the Mexican forces. So as you can tell, the United States pretty much bombarded Mexico with a bunch of forces because our forces moved everywhere. And as you can see, the Mexican forces only moved right through here. We included naval blockades, meaning we wouldn't let ships get to Mexico and things like that. So this happened for 2 years. It's centered around the borders of the country. So if you look here, the United States, like right here, this is the actual border of Mexico now at today's border. It kind of set around there. The United States went into Mexico. They went as far south as right here. Far south is the Bay of Campeche of the Gulf of Mexico. So they went. That's pretty far south. So that's what they did here. And of course, they went all the way around at one point to come up on this side of the Pacific. Because remember, they had to sail all the way around the South American tip to get on the other side of Mexico here, if they wanted to do it by ship. So the United States pretty much just bombarded Mexico and took over all their forts and attacked everything up in here. And they even attacked down here. And it lasted for 2 years. So who won? The United States won. And the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed. Mexico ceded land to the United States. Mexico lost half their land. And whenever I mean half their land, that's what I mean by losing half their land. So if we look here at this map, so yeah, you look here at this map and then watch what happens after the war. So everything in gray here, is Mexican property. And then watch what happens whenever we move forward out of the war. Right there. This line right here, basically everything above this line is the United States now. So Mexico lost a lot of land during the Mexican-American War. And remember, we talked about California and how the United States won in California. Look what's included in this. California is right here. So they get, not only does the United States keep Texas, they also incorporate California now into the United States. Now this is all part of the United States territories. They're not states yet, but it's just their territories. So things to remember: the United States won the Mexican-American War and Mexico lost half their land. So now let's talk about some historical settlements, and we're just going to touch on this a little bit. What is a settlement? A settlement is a new place where people live and establish a community. California had 3 types, and we've already talked about these 3 types: presidios, missions, and pueblos. We've already talked about those 3 types, so those shouldn't be something where you're like, whoa, what are those? We should know what those are. All right, so did you get it? How many parts was California divided into? 1, 2, or 3? And remember, there was 2. California was divided into 2 parts named Baja and Alta. Why did the Spanish build missions in California? It was to convert Native Americans to being Catholics. Why did the missions fail in California? Disease and lack of money. All right, smallpox, measles, they killed a lot of Native Americans, and the Spanish government just simply couldn't afford to maintain the missions well enough to keep them open. The Spanish didn't have a lot of money, so they ran out of money. All right, so what eventually happened to the missions in California after the Mexican government took over? Michigan destroyed them, right? Mexico. I don't know why I said Michigan there, guys. Mexico destroyed the Spanish missions, and the land was then sold and given to large landowners. Like big cattle farms formed, and Native Americans became slaves. So Mexico, after they took care of California, they were like, you know what? Let's bulldoze these. They didn't have bulldozers, so I don't know how they destroyed them. Probably with a bunch of like hammers. Brick by brick, piece by piece, they destroyed them. So that's what happened. So Native Americans had the freedom to choose whatever they wanted when they lived inside a mission. True or false? Remember, that is false. They did not have freedom to make their own choices. They were told what to wear, when to eat, when to go to church, when to go to bed, and what to do during the day. They had no freedom to decide what they wanted to do on their own. They weren't allowed to make their own choices. So why was living in the Pueblo so dangerous? Was it wild animals roam freely? Native American tribes would attack, or all of the answers? It's all of the answers. Native Americans could attack, wild animals could roam freely, and without protection, people had to be constantly watching for it, right? And it wasn't even attacking people. Native Americans wouldn't attack people. They would attack their crops, or they would attack their water supply. They would do something that would disrupt their daily living. So where people living where had the easiest life, and I have a misspelling there, so I apologize. Um, was it missions, ranchos, or pueblos? Remember, it was the ranchos, right? They're the cool ranchos. Both men and women spoke Spanish. Children were taught to be polite, but didn't have formal education. Had 5 to 16 children average per rancho home, and they were a happy people who liked to have fun. Why did the Mexican-American War begin? We just talked about this whenever I went over it in this PowerPoint presentation. Was that Mexico wanted to attack the United States because of Oklahoma? Mexico and U.S. fought over the Texas border, or the United States wanted to take over the entire country of Mexico? All right. So remember, whenever I tell you that most of the time wars are fought over land, this is the same thing. Mexico and U.S. fought over the Texas border. Remember, the United States thought it was a Rio Grande River, but Mexico thought it was a Nueces River, and Mexican troops attacked U.S. troops, or the United States troops attacked Mexican troops. Either way, one of the two troops attacked somebody to begin the war at that border. So that's the big one, okay? So we want to remember that they fought over the Texas border. Who won the war and how much land was giving up? Okay, so was it U.S. won and Mexico gave up California, Oregon, and Oklahoma? Mexico won and took back Texas, or U.S. won and Mexico gave up half their land? All right, so this was it. The United States won and Mexico was forced to give up half their land, which became the states of California, Arizona, New Mexico, parts of Nevada, Utah, and Colorado. So be careful on this one on the test, guys. This is true. This is not true. And the reason why this one is not true is because Mexico never had control of Oregon and they never had control of Oklahoma. So they only gave up California, but they did not have control of these other two. So be careful on that one. All right, California had 3 major types of settlements. What were they? And again, I got spelling all over the place. So again, we talked about these all throughout the week. Pueblos, presidios, and missions. Those are your 3 types of settlements. Pueblos were towns, presidios were forts, and missions were religious communities. So we talked about these. Those 3 things should not be unfamiliar to you. All right, so here is your homework and what you need to do today. Read Mexican-American War and historical settlements. You do not have to do the assignments in the reading, okay? So even though it says click here to start your assignment, do not do that, okay? Go back through, do week 5 graded brain pop, Mexican-American War. Some of you have already started that. Do week 5 graded homework, CAMI, California settlement. Study the quiz, study guide, study the vocabulary words. Turn in CNN 10 worksheet for bonus points, which you'll have to click and watch on your own. But that is all there is for today. I will be available most of the day. I do have a dentist appointment that I got to leave here from 11:30, and I will probably be back home around 1:30. But I will have my phone with me, so if you do need to get a hold of me, send me a message in Canvas, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can during that time, right? All right, any other time you can get a hold of me, but while I'm either driving to the dentist or I'm getting at the dentist, I might be a little slow getting back to you guys. All right, so I hope you have a great Wednesday. I will see you tomorrow, or as they say in Spanish, mañana, and I will see everybody on Thursday. Bye-bye, guys.